Hungary is located in the middle of Europe, east of the Alps, in the Carpathian Basin. It is linked culturally to the West, but its economic development is more associated with Eastern Europe. Here, the traveller is awaited by the romanticism of the endless plains, picturesque mountains, rich cities, and pretty villages. Many travellers consider Budapest the most beautiful capital of the world, which is partly due to its topography. The larger part of the city, cut into two by the river Danube, extends over the flat land of Pest. The outlook of this part of the city was basically determined by the unparalleled economic boom early this century. One of the symbols of Budapest, the Matthias Church, built more than 700 years ago, is in the medieval castle district of Buda, constituting the historical kernel of the city. Fisherman's Bastion, offering a breathtaking panorama, should never be missed by any tourist while in Budapest. Most of the ancient burghers' houses obtained their present Baroque character in the 18th century. The armies of Western Europe expelled the Turks occupying the country in 1686. The statue of Prince Eugene of Savoy, the commander of the campaign, stands in front of the palace, looking at Pest from Buda. Hungary's most beautiful railway station, Nyugati pályaudvar, Budapest West, is located at one of the busiest crossroads of the capital. Its iron structure was designed in 1874 by Eiffel, the world-famous French architect. The most imposing route of Budapest is bordered by a series of mostly eclectic and neo-Renaissance palaces along its length of 2.5 kilometers. András Street leads to the monumental Heroes Square. Erected at the time of the millennium of the Hungarian conquest, here we have an ensemble of monuments. The statues of outstanding Hungarian rulers and statesmen are to be found here. Among them is King Matthias, the most popular Hungarian king. The square is flanked on both sides by the home of large art collections, the Museum of Fine Art and the Hall of Exhibitions, the latter being the Gallery of Modern Art. The neo-Gothic House of Parliament is the largest building of the country. Visitors to the almost 130-year-old zoo are awaited by real beasts instead of stone lions or lion-hearted politicians. Every demand is met by Budapest, the city of baths, where a dozen medicinal spas, originating mostly from Turkish times, are at the disposal of patients, as well as a number of public baths and swimming pools. The swimming pool and medicinal spa of the Gellert Hotel is the most elegant of all. The The somewhat weather-beaten apartment houses and ornate palaces of hidden beauty evoke the good old days of the monarchy. The riches of architectural styles embrace classicism, romanticism, together with eclecticism and Art Nouveau. Today, Budapest has more than 2 million inhabitants. Entrepreneurs are opening new shops, restaurants, hotels, one after the other, where supply and service are of international standard. Exciting artistic events follow each other in quick succession in the art galleries and concert halls. In metropolitan Budapest, the tourist season lasts all year round. Crowds of tourists are constantly flowing around its centre and in its places of interest. Only 20 kilometres north of Budapest, Szentendre was built around a hill, having a Mediterranean microclimate. The settlement was founded by Serb merchants fleeing from the Turkish invaders. Later on, artists were attracted here by the magic of its crooked, narrow lanes and its picturesque landscape. This is how Szentendre has become one of the cultural centres of the country. Today, visitors are welcomed to its galleries, museums, antique and folklore shops, second-hand bookshops and confectioners. Even so, Szentendre remains to be the spiritual capital of the Serbs living in Hungary. This is testified to by the riches of local Orthodox ecclesiastic art. The medieval royal seat, Visegrad, is the gateway of the Danube Bend, one of the most beautiful regions of the country. The building of the citadel, offering a magnificent view, was started in the 13th century. King Matthias's palace on the bank of the Danube recalls the memory of the heyday of Renaissance architecture and art during a flourishing economic and cultural period of Hungarian history. Hollókő, built in one of the valleys of the northern mountain range, was declared protected by UNESCO as part of the world's architectural heritage. The village is a special open-air museum. The characteristic buildings and pieces of furniture can be seen showing their original function and in their original place. Traditions of Polotz, folk art and ethnography are still cultivated in this region. The love of carefully kept order and cleanliness is a burgher's virtue. Its maintenance is particularly important in an old town of burghers. The more than 800 years old Sopron at the foothills of the Alps has become one of the most attractive cities, abundant in monuments as a result of its Western type bourgeoisie. The virtue of art-loving was enthusiastically practiced by a burgher family of Italian origin, whose members pursued a number of occupations, from chimney sweeping to panel painting. Their house, the Storno House, presents an abundance of art treasures, statues, paintings, and masterpieces of applied and folk art. Sopron was lucky, as it managed to avoid the ravages of war. Even today, Franz Liszt would be able to find his way along its old streets, where once he held his concerts. Zag, surrounded by a forest of chestnut trees, is also located at the foothills of the Alps. The tiny village is famous for its log-walled chestnut cellars under thatched roofs, apart from the picturesque landscape. The log walls create the impression of a harrow. The buildings were constructed of wood and the walls were cemented with mud. This is a characteristic way of peasant construction further south as well, in the region of the Őrség.
Cáki ember, cáki születés. Akkor is. Mondom, ide nem eresztem be. Már nekem állataim vannak, azokat úgy meg kell etetni. Azok nem várják a körmendi televíziót. Közelebb mentem hozzá. Mondom, nézze uram, a földben nincs hiba. Már ezek a gáznyelvák nem ezek, hanem az alacsik, meg azok is nőnek a földi. Meg a föld, hogy elszálltak.
architectural taste of the aristocracy is exemplified by the Esterházy Palace, dominating over Fertőd, east of Sopron. It is the Hungarian Versailles. The 18th century building, erected in a park of 230 hectares, is the most magnificent and the largest palace of the country. Joseph Haydn composed and played music among its walls for almost 30 years as the court musician of the prince. His memory is acknowledged by a museum here. Concerts and international music competitions for discovering talented musicians are still held in its gala room. The Rothschild pattern of birds, the border pattern of parsley, favoured by Franz Josef, the tiny roses or flower pattern placed in a gold net, as well as several other motifs, are still painted by hand, quite uniquely in Europe, at the porcelain factory of Herend. Lovers of porcelain may admire not only the objects of the local museum, but can also purchase the products on the spot. At the nearby fair, the people of Herend give paper trays, but only for the delicious fried sausage. Here, potters as well as other artisans offer their wares in the gay commotion. One of the most precious creations of Romanesque art is the Basilica of Jak, consecrated in 1256. Its architectural solutions, as well as mastery of statues and stone carving, overwhelm the visitor. The cathedral and bishop's palace of Szombathely was built later. The rooms of the palace, built in the style of Louis XVI and completed in 1783, are ornamented with the frescoes of Dorfmeister and Molberg. The largest ruin of a fortress in Transdanubia keeps watch over a lonely mountain of steep slopes at Shumeg. It's a medieval fortification which could never be taken by the Turks. Later on, it became a bishop's see, and finally it was set on fire by the Habsburgs in 1713.